This is just unbelievable. According to someone close to him, Donald Trump is expected to issue an executive order regarding Bitcoin and crypto on his first day in office. That means the likelihood of a Bitcoin reserve is rising significantly here. This whole thing is being posted here, or rather, confirmed, by the Washington Post. A song has actually been released here that could potentially allow for the real release of Bitcoin, to pump it massively up. Everyone is waiting for the massive event, the day when Donald Trump is inaugurated here. And from what it looks like, Donald Trump is giving a high priority to the regulation of Bitcoin. It means that, in the end, all the hurdles will be cleared away for crypto. But it doesn't guarantee that a Bitcoin reserve is definitely coming. Crypto, that ultimately all hurdles are removed here. It doesn't guarantee yet that a Bitcoin reserve is definitely coming, because a lot of people are already writing about it on X. Yes, Bitcoin reserve is now 100% confirmed. No, we don't have that yet. But the likelihood is rising drastically here. And if a Bitcoin reserve doesn't come, then at least some laws could be introduced here on the first day after the inauguration. That would make it significantly easier for Bitcoin and also simplify the environment around Bitcoin a lot. For banks to hold Bitcoin, and a lot more that also means catalysts for the Bitcoin price. We're going to take a close look at this now. What has been leaked here? What the Washington Post knows that could lead to a massive Bitcoin pump. As soon as Donald Trump is inaugurated, it's been introduced. A lot of people are basically assuming that either the pump is coming or the dump. So that means either we see nothing at all and then the price dumps, or we see a massive rally if some crazy stuff happens. If Donald Trump starts buying Bitcoin or whatever. But we also need to know one more thing. Nothing would be leaked here. It's not about Donald Trump buying Bitcoin, but rather it's more about the regulation and those kinds of things. We're also seeing that the Bitcoin market is turning around again. That's always exciting with Bitcoin, how quickly the mood shifts from, let's say, I'm drawing bear and tearing it down again. Can switch to bullish. So now we suddenly have that totally bullish sentiment again. Also with the executive order that's potentially coming here. But let's take a look at this. In a direct excerpt from the Washington Post, it says here, David Sachs and members of the Trump transition team have been working closely with crypto leaders to finalize a legislative strategy. It's expected that Trump will issue executive orders on his first day in office as president. So, an executive order, not just one, but apparently several here, addressing issues like the elimination of banking and the repeal of a controversial crypto accounting guideline. This guideline requires banks to account for digital assets as liabilities on their balance sheets. So, a person who's involved in the discussions. The Trump team has made it very clear that this is a priority. The person outs. So here we have several really crazy things included. As I said, it's not really being talked about here. That Bitcoin is being bought. That doesn't mean we're buying on the first day 500 Bitcoin or 500,000 or something like that, or we sell all our gold now and buy with it Bitcoin. No, it's not going that far yet. But in the end, the ZP 121 rule is supposed to be overridden, which ultimately allows banks. Basically, there are also too few deposits to hold Bitcoin here. Right now, you always need a one-to-one backing coverage. Bitcoin needs cash. If the Z121 rule changes, this won't apply. If the Z121 rule is overridden here, then that wouldn't be the case anymore. Then it would be possible for banks to hold Bitcoin here. Or it's already possible now. But then it would also be attractive for banks to hold Bitcoin, because it's possible now, but it's just not attractive. And then the Bitcoin offerings can go to the people. Then Bitcoin can really pick up speed here. Because banks, they're just still, let's say, players that you can't just take out of the equation. You could also say, okay, we're not relying on banks anymore. We're just going with Bitcoin. But banks are just an important on and off ramp here in the Bitcoin market. And it also allows for building a collateral system based on Bitcoin here. That we can collateralize our Bitcoin, so we can take out fiat loans against the Bitcoin. And that can ultimately only happen if the banks are better equipped here. And then it was really interesting here in this excerpt that this is really happening. Several executive orders, what's happening here? There's also the executive order for buying Bitcoin. Dennis Post has already prepared that, if I'm not mistaken. There are now several executive orders that have already been prepared here, but they seem to be preparing their own executive orders as well. And then it could really be that Donald Trump has to sign a couple of executive orders here first. So definitely one, because of the banks, and then probably also because of deregulation. So that Bitcoin is just going to be further deregulated here, that there are fewer regulations. And maybe also stories like with the debanking. And so with the Elizabeth Warrens. And so those who have always been so heavily against Bitcoin. And also the Biden administration, which has been really going hard against Bitcoin, that this is something, is being undermined because there are really a lot of people affected by Operation Jog 2.0. They would be debanked. So anyone who has done anything with Bitcoin, a company that has done something with Bitcoin or anything in the banking sector related to Bitcoin, their accounts and stuff would just be closed. That's really, really nasty. And that might possibly be reversed here. In that context, there was actually another interesting piece of news. And Trump is now planning one. To set up a crypto advisory team, and we already know that I ultimately want to establish this crypto advisory team. But it says here that 24 leaders are supposed to draft legislation. Here. 24 people are supposed to be responsible for legislation and stuff like that here. And basically, to make the USA the #1 hub for crypto or Bitcoin here. Fred Krueger also posted something really interesting. He basically assumes that Donald Trump will sign several executive orders here. On the first day, first of all, he says here the immediate massive deregulation through executive orders. So not just for Bitcoin, but in general, he's going to deregulate a lot. Then he clearly states here, new clear rules for crypto. That could also be done through an executive order. He strongly believes in a strategic Bitcoin reserve, tax cuts, and massive pressure on the Fed to lower interest rates. So this is really interesting here. That ultimately happens here. Not just in the form of Bitcoin, but that the whole thing is supposed to happen. So that the Bitcoin regulation is going to improve. The executive orders and all that are coming, but he also believes that the Fed will continue to face massive pressure here from Donald Trump to lower the interest rates. Because right now, it really looks like the Fed might only lower interest rates in 2025. And I think there's even one. There's a 45% chance that there won't be any interest rate cuts at all by June 2025. And the US dollar is way too strong right now. Bitcoin is still holding up pretty well considering how strong the US dollar is. But just give it a shot. We have an executive order. We basically have the whole positive regulation for Bitcoin. And on top of that, Trump is putting pressure on the Federal Reserve that they finally start lowering the interest rates, and if they want to, even do some QE. That would be pretty drastic, but on the other hand, it just doesn't seem fitting. Because on the other side, we have the Doge team led by Elon Musk, who actually wants to save money here, who wants to cut the deficit by like 2 trillion a year or something along those lines. But how is he going to pull that off exactly, if Donald Trump keeps putting pressure on the Fed? In the end, that's a mystery to me. But we can be indifferent to that, because everyone who has Bitcoin benefits if Donald Trump really goes all out. On one hand, in the form of executive orders, and on the other hand, in the form of money printing. And what we also saw, that the chance has simply gone up. Here on the betting markets, after this information has basically been leaked. It could also be that it goes a bit higher in the next few days. You have to say, the chance is still not there. Over 50% here on the betting markets, but we're already getting close to around 40% or so. And that's definitely going to escalate in the next few days. There might still be one thing or another released. It's already well known that Donald Trump apparently sees the Bitcoin price as one. As a marker of his success, just like he used to see the stock market as a marker of his success. And in the end, there was also a statement from Anthony Scaramucci. The statement that Donald Trump wants to pump the Bitcoin price to at least 150,000. He wants to pump the US dollar, still I think in the first month or the first couple of months or something, when he takes office. And in the long run, he probably wants to pump the Bitcoin price even higher. And Eric Trump, you know, he's talking about a $1 million Bitcoin price. It's just crazy what's going on right now. What could put the whole thing at risk a bit more? That would be the story if Biden actually sold the Bitcoin here. There's still the 69,000 Bitcoin, which are now up for sale potential. I think Donald Trump will flip that on the very first day he's in office, when he's in office, that he won't be selling this anymore. The Bitcoin, but that they will really be held through. He also promised that no Bitcoin would be sold. He didn't promise that Bitcoin would be bought, but at least that no Bitcoin would be sold. And then you would get the 200,000 take Bitcoin, convert it into a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and at least that would have been secured here. I don't know, at least for his time in office, that the Bitcoin won't be sold here. That's already a positive sign. But in my opinion, he really needs to go all out. Because if he just puts in some pro-Bitcoin regulations like that, and in the end, if he doesn't go all out on the very first day, and here somehow he says, okay, we're buying now 300,000, 400,000 Bitcoin, what will happen then? Other nations will be front-running Donald Trump here. There's already confirmation, or no, not confirmation, but at least the tweet from CZ, who posted about it, that the United Arab Emirates have already bought 400,000, have bought Bitcoin. And that's how a lot of other people are speculating too. That now, with the whole Donald Trump situation, a whole bunch of nations have started getting into Bitcoin here to front-run the USA. Also Russia, China, and others. And in the end, that would almost be a bad, let's say, game theoretical. The setup here from Donald Trump, if he just says, hey, we're doing deregulation, we're putting out a few executive orders, but we're buying no Bitcoin. Because that would ultimately signal to the market, hey, he's open to Bitcoin. He's deregulating it. Now, in the next step, Bitcoin could be bought. That might happen in 100 days, in 200 days, in 300 days. But during the time when no Bitcoin is being bought here, other nations could then get ahead of Donald Trump and the US. And that's why, in my opinion, the only thing that really matters. If I were president now, what makes sense here? I'm not a president, but I'd go all out. It's all or nothing. Stay quiet or say, we're buying. So it's either all or nothing, because you either really keep quiet and do everything secretly behind the scenes. Or you just go all out and say right away, we're buying. F00000 300,000 400,000 Bitcoin. I think you really have to tackle this aggressively. Buy 1 million. If you buy Bitcoin or something like that, I mean, what kind of message does that send? Then you buy 1 million Bitcoin or something like that. There are other countries that already have more Bitcoin. That means you won't be the superpower, like Donald Trump says here. Instead, you end up being the second best or the third best. And I don't think I want to place Donald Trump or the US as the second best Bitcoin country. But the US, if they want to back things like the dollar with Bitcoin or whatever, what is Trump planning? What he hinted at. Paying off debts with Bitcoin and stuff. If something like that is really supposed to happen here, you really have to go all out here and open up your wallet. You can print your own money. You could buy Bitcoin. By the way, that's already a really long prediction. Noel tweeted about it back in 2013. The first nation to buy Bitcoin with its own printed money will. It's going to win big here. It's almost hard to imagine. There's actually something from Equus here, and they posted that the US could reduce its debt by 35% if they set up a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'm definitely curious about that. They could reduce it if they set up a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'm definitely curious to see how it all turns out. We've had a lot of back and forth. It could also be that the next few days are going to be very turbulent. It's definitely possible that we'll see another crazy spike like that, which then gets sold off very quickly and maybe bought back again. That would just be a whole lot of volatility. We have different data that's going to come out in the next few days. Different things. These are still a bit unclear. It's also possible that other leaks or whatever come out. You have to say, though, that nothing has been officially confirmed by Donald Trump or anything like that. It's just from some insiders, and you don't really know who they are, which insider that is. And in the end, some magazine posted that. It could also be that they just want to make money here. They just want to make headlines, and so on. If you're a Buddhist and still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll drop a link for you below. 21 Bitcoin. The easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. Here's the code for Bitcoin. Up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Let me know what you think about that. See you later. Peace out.